In November, a jury found 46-year-old David Carlson of Sparrowbush guilty of first-degree manslaughter. Carlson claimed he fired in self-defense as he held Norris Acosta Sanchez at gunpoint so a neighbor could call police. Prosecutors say Carlson was a vigilante who took matters into his own hands.
Police say it was an admission Vasada later denied, but said happened after the shooting during a spiritual moment. Vasada was found in the Paseos neighborhood. He collapsed near his BMW. Police say there is evidence to suggest there are additional suspects out there since someone dropped him off at that location.
Nathan Fiorella of Stewart was taken down by the sheriff's office SWAT team about 2:30 this morning. Detectives say he hit several buildings during the past few weeks, including the elections office, an attorney's office, high school, and several private businesses.
Breaking news right now, an arrest in the murder of a woman found dead on her 39th birthday at a Riverview home. Deputies put the cuffs on Joshua Leon Carmona. They claim he used a baseball bat and a knife to kill his mother.
There were a fair amount of people out for St. Patrick's Day celebrations, and that's why police hope someone here saw something. They tell us just after 2 a.m., one man threw the punch. He had two other men with him. Now police want to talk to all three men. Again, this is very serious here. A man is fighting for his life this morning.
Police harassing a woman in Queens. Surveillance video shows the man following the woman into an apartment building in Sunnyside. He pushes her against the wall, and then police say he covered her mouth with his hand. The woman fights back, and he leaves. The woman was not injured, and there are no reports of anything being taken.
председатель отделения партии независимости Соединенного Королевства. Мне посмотреть и убедиться самому.
My experience of the people are that they are just as beautiful, and it's very clear to me that I believe in the self-determination of people, and it's very clear to me that Crimea had a referendum, that was a fair and open referendum, and that they clearly chose to join back with what they perceive as their motherland, Russia.
Здесь Крым – это прекрасное место.
Уважаемые представители Республики Крым и Севастополя, они здесь среди нас. Граждане России, жители Крыма и Севастополя. Сегодня, основываясь на результатах референдума, который прошел в Крыму, опираясь на волю народа, вношу в Федеральное собрание и прошу рассмотреть конституционный закон о принятии в состав России двух новых субъектов Федерации – Республики Крым и города Севастополь.
The Ukrainian General Staff has reacted to Russian drills in Crimea. Acts of Russia were named as illegal. They also threatened Russia with countermeasures. As Vladislav Seleznov, the Ukrainian General Staff spokesman, said, Kyiv would keep a close eye on the maneuvers. The General Staff of Ukraine has a range of plans on prompt response to any challenges from Russia, regardless of place where they occur, he noted. However, he refused to reveal any details. He pointed out that the Ukrainian analysts who follow the exercises figure out risks and make amendments to plans and preparation of their units. As we reported, large-scale drills of the Russian airborne forces, the Black Sea Fleet and the aerospace forces were started in Crimea. The Novorossiysk Commission and Ulan-Ude air assault divisions are engaged, as well as some forces and means of the Black Sea Fleet and the 4th Army of the Air Forces and Air Defense of the Southern Military District.
Now, the Syrian army has reportedly downed an Israeli reconnaissance drone shortly after it violated the Syrian airspace near the southeastern province of Quneitra. The area is close to the Golan Heights. Press TV's correspondent in Damascus, Muhammad Ali, says the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah has confirmed the downing of the drone and that Syria is serious about confronting Israeli violations.
Hezbollah's central news media center confirmed that the Syrian army, the air defense systems in Al-Quneitra countryside were able to shoot down an Israeli drone that was flying over the countryside of Al-Quneitra, particularly over eastern Al-Samadaniye, a small village over there. What we know is that the drone is an Israeli-made Skylark 1 drone made by, of course, an Israeli company, Elbit Systems, called Elbit Systems over there. Of course, this comes only a couple of days after there was an assassination by an Israeli drone targeting a Syrian, of course, a Syrian national defense personnel, Yasser. His name was Yasser Diab. Over there, he was assassinated while he was inside his car. Also, we have been seeing increased Israeli aerial activity over Syria, and tension has been rising. But it seems once again the Syrian army is confirming and sending a clear message that it is always ready to shoot down any Israeli, whether a drone, fighter jet, or helicopter from now on.
The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency has released a 1986 government memorandum that includes detailed plans to overthrow the late Syrian President Hafez al-Assad, father of the current President Bashar. According to that memo, the U.S. government was hoping to drag the country into civil war by exacerbating the conflicts between the Shia Assad family and the Sunni soldiers in the army. Using the power of religious organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood was also on the table. A disclosure by WikiLeaks in 2011 suggests that this may not have been the first time the U.S. has planned to end the Assad government. The memo also foresaw the uprising of a major terrorist organization. It said that continuous confrontation would turn Syria into a breeding ground for terrorism.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has criticized the U.S. policy on his country, saying Washington is only seeking to fulfill its own interests in Syria.
American policy based on many standards, not double. They have maybe 10 standards because they don't base their policy on values or on international law. They base it on their own vision, their own interests, on sometimes the balance of different lobbies and powers within the American institutions. We all know that. So we don't talk about double standards. This is very normal for the U.S. For example,
Assad said the U.S. defended its own attacks in Iraq while it condemned the Syrian army raids against terrorists as a violation of human rights. He also said even the American people have lost faith in their government. The Syrian president made the remarks in an interview with Russian media in Damascus. The U.S. has deployed hundreds of troops in Syria without the country's consent. Assad has described the U.S. forces in Syria as invaders. Washington and its allies have also been carrying out unauthorized airstrikes on Syria since 2014.
Well, Iran has warned the U.S. against violating the nuclear deal between Tehran and the P5+1 group of countries, also known as the JCPOA.
Just as the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution has said, the nation sticks to its obligations under the agreement and will not violate them. But if the U.S. violations of its commitments reach a level that the continuation of the JCPOA runs counter to our national interests, the Islamic Republic is fully prepared to return to the pre-JCPOA era.
Zarif was speaking to reporters in the city of Isfahan. He also said Iranian scientists have made operational the most advanced centrifuges of the past 2 months. Zarif added that these centrifuges are able to enrich uranium 20 times more than the previous ones. International bodies, including the IAEA, have time and again announced that Tehran has fully complied with its commitments under the nuclear deal.
North Korea has expanded the size of its uranium enrichment facility, signaling progress in the development of its nuclear weapons program. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal on Monday, Yukiya Amano, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said North Korea is rapidly developing its ability to produce nuclear weapons by advancing both its production of plutonium and its uranium enrichment. Amano said, citing satellite images, that Pyongyang has doubled the size of its existing uranium facility in Yongbyon on top of the separate uranium enrichment facility confirmed in 2010. He said the situation is very bad and it has gone into a new phase.
Video is disgusting. Kim Jong-un releasing a clip depicting the fake moment that North Korea blows up a U.S. warplane. A woman narrating in the background saying the bomber will fall from the sky after getting hit by a hail of fire.
North Korea clearly top of mind for the Trump administration right now.
North Korea is expected to launch more missiles.
North Korea's ruthless dictator gives the order.
North Korea, I'll tell you what's happening there is disgraceful.
바다의 핵항공모함은 목줄기에 비수가 박혀 꿈틀거리다 나가 너부러질 변태 덩어리일 뿐. 교류의 통일을 위해 인류의 평화를 위해 미국이 시들르는 범죄 핵을
We have the will and capability to fully respond to any war which the U.S. wants. If the businessmen turned U.S. authorities think that they can frighten us, they will soon recognize that their method will not work.
Well, the statement comes from the country's foreign ministry and was read out on state-run TV. The statement also said that the world would soon witness the results of a recent jet engine test as part of its missile program. During his trip to South Korea and Japan last week, Tillerson said the U.S. was considering a wider range of options in dealing with the DPRK, including the use of military force.
Мы обратили внимание на серьезные риски, которыми чревато развертывание в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе элементов глобальной противоракетной обороны Соединенных Штатов. Изложили наши оценки, которые показывают, что если речь идет о противодействии угрозам, исходящим из Корейской Народно-Демократической Республики, то создание подобной системы ПРО, равно как и накачивание вооружений в этом регионе, является ответом совсем непропорциональным. Мы едины с нашими японскими партнерами в том, что Северная Корея должна неукоснительно выполнять все резолюции Совета Безопасности ООН. Считаем при этом, что санкции, которые Совет Безопасности ввел в отношении Пхеньяна, должны рассматриваться не как инструмент наказания, а как стимул для того, чтобы вернуть ситуацию в политико-переговорное русло.
From 1945 to the early 1960s, the U.S., along with 4 other nuclear powers, tested hundreds of bombs in the open air, like this one in Nevada, exposing American soldiers to its radiation. Now government researchers have given the public many more images of those blasts, after scouring its warehouses for films that were left untouched and allowed to decompose for years.
We think there were originally about 10,000 films. We've located about 6,500 of them, and to date we've scanned a little over about 4,200 films, and we've analyzed just a small fraction.
This 1958 test in the Pacific yielded the force of more than 25 kilotons of TNT. Some of the films were recorded at 24,000 frames a second, allowing a much more detailed measurement of the fireballs and shock waves. After scanning them, Spriggs says the original data turned out to be off by up to 30%. For the past 2 decades, in place of nuclear detonations, the U.S. has relied on supercomputers to simulate the force of its bombs. But both the U.S. and Russia plan to upgrade their arsenals. A modernization program laid out by former President Barack Obama will cost $1 trillion over the next 30 years. While Obama called for reduced reliance on nuclear weapons, Donald Trump says the U.S. must produce more warheads to guarantee its nuclear superiority.
It would be wonderful. A dream would be that no country would have nukes. But if countries are going to have nukes, we're going to be at the top of the pack.
Spriggs says by showing the unbelievable force of those weapons and how much devastation they can wreak, people will have even more reason to be reluctant to use them.
Politico reports that top representatives of more than 60 countries have gathered in Washington this week to discuss the coalition fighting against the Islamic State. Foreign delegations are trying to score meetings with the Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, as well as with close loyalists and relatives surrounding President Donald Trump at the White House. The discussion will now offer the 2-month-old administration, which has struggled to present a unified message on foreign policy, a chance to make a positive impression on plans with allies to defeat the terrorist network in Iraq and Syria.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
Back on the election campaign trail, candidate Donald Trump's policy was simple: bomb ISIL into submission. Now, as President Trump, it's more complicated. The battle to retake the northern Iraqi city of Mosul is progressing, but it's entering its 5th month, despite growing U.S. support with troops and material in the fight against ISIL.
They are hiding amongst the civilian population all over Iraq and Syria, and we're focused on chasing them out in a sort of sequential campaign.
The U.S. says ISIL has up to 15,000 fighters spread across the deserts of Iraq and Syria. Meanwhile, a promised plan within 30 days of the new administration to defeat ISIL has yet to materialize. However, in the final months of the Obama administration and after the first few weeks of the Trump administration, the battle against ISIL is bearing fruit. The group's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, has reportedly fled Mosul. Many of his inner circle have been killed, and the flow of sympathetic foreign fighters who once flooded into Syria to wage jihad has slowed to a trickle, as ISIL has suffered defeats on the battlefield. The US has stepped up military action and aid to those fighting ISIL. More attacks from the air and logistical support, and on the ground, these armoured vehicles have just been supplied to the Syrians battling the extremists. More help could come. But there are geopolitical problems. The US had hoped improved relations with Russia could bring in Moscow to the global coalition.
If there's a way that we can combat ISIS with any country, whether it's Russia or anyone else, and we have a shared national interest in that, sure, we'll take it.
But investigations into Russian interference with the US presidential election are hampering any rapprochement. Moscow has not been invited to this week's coalition summit in Washington, and relations between Washington and Tehran have turned colder since the election of President Trump. The anti-ISIL meeting here in Washington this week will give the new administration here in Washington a chance to show any new thinking when it comes to how to fight ISIL on the ground. Also, perhaps a chance for the White House to admit that the war against ISIL won't be over anytime soon and renew its commitment that it's in it for the long haul.
He had 2 other men with him. Now police want to talk to all 3 men. Again, this is very serious here. A man is fighting for his life this morning.
Police harassing a woman in Queens. Surveillance video shows the man following the woman into an apartment building in Sunnyside. He pushes her against the wall, and then police say he covered her mouth with his hand. The woman fights back, and he leaves. The woman was not injured, and there are no reports of anything being taken.
председатель отделения партии независимости Соединенного Королевства. Мне посмотреть и убедиться самому.
My experience of the people are that they are just as beautiful, and it's very clear to me that I believe in the self-determination of people, and it's very clear to me that Crimea had a referendum, that was a fair and open referendum, and that they clearly chose to join back with what they perceive as their motherland, Russia.
Уважаемые представители Республики Крым и Севастополя, они здесь среди нас. Граждане России, жители Крыма и Севастополя. Сегодня, основываясь на результатах референдума, который прошел в Крыму, опираясь на волю народа, вношу в Федеральное собрание и прошу рассмотреть конституционный закон о принятии в состав России двух новых субъектов Федерации – Республики Крым и города Севастополь.
In November, a jury found 46-year-old David Carlson of Sparrow Bush guilty of first-degree manslaughter. Carlson claimed he fired in self-defense as he held Norris Acosta Sanchez at gunpoint so a neighbor could call police. Prosecutors say Carlson was a vigilante who took matters into his own hands.
Police say it was an admission Vasada later denied, but said happened after the shooting during a spiritual moment. Vasada was found in the Paseos neighborhood. He collapsed near his BMW. Police say there is evidence to suggest there are additional suspects out there since someone dropped him off at that location.
Nathan Fiorella of Stewart was taken down by the sheriff's office SWAT team about 2:30 this morning. Detectives say he hit several buildings during the past few weeks, including the elections office, an attorney's office, high school, and several private businesses.
Breaking news right now, an arrest in the murder of a woman found dead on her 39th birthday at a Riverview home. Deputies put the cuffs on Joshua Leon Carmona. They claim he used a baseball bat and a knife to kill his mother.
There were a fair amount of people out for St. Patrick's Day celebrations, and that's why police hope someone here saw something. They tell us just after 2 a.m., one man threw the punch